This video is more of a disclosure I didn't necessarily want to make because I absolutely do not want to campaign for anybody, and you will likely not hear me talk about this going into the future. But for the sake of those who watch my channel and for the sake of transparency, I decided to do a video about why I recently made a donation to Andrew Yang, and to Tulsi Gabbard. It's very simple why I donated to Tulsi Gabbard. A lot of people have said, I've seen some criticism saying, actually, let me back up. I made a post on Facebook and Minds, and I tweeted out that I made these donations. I want to disclose that I made these donations because I do fund journalism. A lot of people have said, Tim only reads the news. No, I do on Subverse, youtube.com/Subverse videos is where the more straight news and journalism is going. My main channel is still, for the most part, news analysis and opinion, and this channel is mostly opinion. That's why in this channel, I'm going to talk about why I decided to donate to Yang and to Gabbard. I made posts about it, and I want to follow up this. Some people have criticized me, saying that supporting these two individuals is a 180 on my politics, and I absolutely think that is 100. That's just ridiculous. Absolutely not. You know that I was a big proponent of Bernie Sanders in 2015 and 2016. The reason for that was mostly about what I viewed as trust, anti-establishment, and someone who more closely aligned with my values. I have said over and over again, Bernie Sanders was too far to the left for me, but I trusted him. Unfortunately, going into 2016, he endorsed Hillary Clinton. I really didn't like that. And he started pushing identity politics. I really, really did not like that. Tulsi Gabbard has many far left policies I don't agree with. I'm not entirely convinced we can push universal health care, but I'm willing to, I think we should. I think we should try and figure out how to do it. And Andrew Yang made some good points about it. I don't have all the answers. I know there's a lot of policies that they don't agree with. Tulsi Gabbard, for instance, is very, very in favor of gun control. Andrew Yang is less so, but still, gun control. I'm more centrist on those issues. But why I supported Tulsi Gabbard is actually very, very simple. Very, very simple. One of the most important issues to me in any capacity, and I've said this over and over and over again, is foreign intervention and war. And I said, I will criticize Trump for a lot of things. I'm not an expert on a lot of domestic policies, but Trump has engaged in the intervention policies of presidents past, and I absolutely criticize him for that. Tulsi Gabbard, in my opinion, is one of the only politicians who I actually trust will do everything in her power to resist the machine and resist foreign war, period. I'm not a fan of a lot of her policies, but I do trust her. In 2016, she stepped down from the DNC, basically gave him the finger to support Bernie Sanders. That says to me that she is willing to do what she thinks is right, to stand up for herself, to push back on the establishment. And I hope that, I really doubt either of these, I hate to say it, but I don't think they're going to win. But I hope Tulsi Gabbard, if she does, while I don't support her entirely in her positions, if she really does sound like someone who's going to be like, we are not getting involved in regime change. America is going to stop sending our troops over to these foreign wars. That's it. Plain and simple. She's one of the only people I trust to do that. And while I disagree with her and I don't necessarily like her performance on CNN, I hope that I think it's a long shot, but I'm going to support somebody who says no war, no intervention, period. Now, as for Andrew Yang, I am not the strongest supporter of any politician. I am not a big proponent of universal basic income either, which is something that Yang has proposed. I also don't necessarily think it can work. I listened to both Tulsi and Andrew Yang on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was extremely impressed by one thing they both did. 2-hour-long conversations talking about what they believe, why they believe it in a casual setting, and how many people do that. So you may not agree with their policies, but I hope you can at least, hear me out. I am not advocating for anyone to support anyone or do anything. I feel like, for the past several years, Trump supporters have been beaten over the head so hard for supporting Donald Trump and his policies, and it's insane. From this, the reason I bring this up is because I absolutely want to say thank you to all the people who have commented on my post saying, I absolutely disagree with your choices, but I 100% respect your right to support who you support. And I think it's the best we can do. By all means, criticize me, comment below as to why you think these people were a bad choice. I don't want to carry forward with any kind of advocacy for these people. I just want to make sure when you watch my videos, when I criticize certain things, that these are the people I've actually donated to. The main reason I donated to them is just I want to get them on the debate stage. I want to see their ideas played out on a national stage. But I do want to say that Tulsi Gabbard would be like my second choice for one reason. I do not like the idea of the United States drone bombing civilians, commando raids killing children. Obama killed, I believe, 4 American citizens without charge or trial. Extrajudicial assassinations. These are horrifying policies, and I believe America should not be engaging in this. And I don't, look, if you want to advocate for universal healthcare and all of these things, I know they're really expensive. And I know our war budget doesn't account for nearly as much as we would need for a lot of these programs. But I'll say this. Imagine if all the money we spent on building military industrial nonsense and deploying people, we had our armed forces here in the U.S. actually working on providing a common defense instead of being in some country that we shouldn't care about. I understand there's international conflict. I know all about the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. I know about Russia's monopoly on natural gas through Gazprom. Don't trust me when I say I'm well versed on a lot of international issues, the South China Sea. I read this. I don't care, right? I understand those problems. And ultimately, I recognize the U.S. is trying to maintain power, for whatever reason, to create some kind of like global stability. Ultimately, I'm just going to say when it comes to blowing up people, it causes blowback. That's what the CIA called it. I don't like it. So that's why she's my second choice. But Andrew Yang, I listened to him on Joe Rogan, and I'm really confused by the weird meme war, by the support from a lot of fringe right-wing personalities and certain groups that previously supported Trump now support Yang. I have no idea why. I don't think universal basic income can necessarily solve anything, but Andrew Yang, in my opinion, was correct when he pointed out that we are facing a serious crisis in automation that a lot of people aren't talking about. For most of my life, the past 15, 20 years, I've talked to my friends about something I would call the philosophical consequences of technological advancement. It's why I'm a huge fan of Star Trek. I've talked about how I believe socialism is not good. I'm talking about full-blown socialism, communism, obviously, but capitalism does have its limits. What happens when you automate the most common jobs? Serving, low-level jobs, or trucking. Andrew Yang immediately brought up on the Joe Rogan podcast that we can automate long-haul trucking, like throughout Middle America, through the main corridor. There are very few decisions that trucks need to make. And so we're getting close to the point where within a few years, maybe 5, maybe 10 years, by 2030, it's expected, I believe this may be his talking point, we're going to automate 1/3 of all jobs. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm way overblowing the number. But all I want to say is whether or not we're there now, right? Because I was told Ben Shapiro made a point about this saying, when we get to the point where these jobs have automated, let's talk about universal basic income. I agree. I don't think we're there yet. I also am not entirely sure it could work, but we need to start planning now. We do. I don't think Andrew Yang or Tulsi Gabbard or anyone is going to be as powerful as they think they are. Donald Trump, for instance, has been trying to build the wall since he got elected, and he's having trouble doing it. He did just do the national emergency. We'll see how long it lasts. But it's not like the president's going to snap their fingers. So while I disagree with Yang and Tulsi on a lot of issues, I think having someone focused on certain issues that I think are important is why I'm willing to support them. But there's also one more important reason why I thought Yang was going to be good. I went to Tulsi's page to read about her policy positions, and it was kind of sparse. There's not a whole lot there. I don't like that. But as I mentioned, there's literally one reason why I felt like I wanted to support Tulsi Gabbard, get her into these debates, and have her heard on a national stage, whether she wins or not. Anti-war, 100% anti-war. It's one of the things I absolutely care about. And I don't know what will work domestically. I don't know who is right, but I can tell you this. When Barack Obama decided he was going to kill Americans in violation of the Constitution, that freaked me out. I genuinely mean that. And so to have a politician who's going to be like, no war, I'm like, all right, do it. I want her on the stage. I want people to hear what she has to say about intervention, period. If she doesn't win, it's still a really good thing, in my opinion, to get her up on that stage. Andrew Yang, though, has a huge list of issues he's written about. And while I think he goes a little too far left on some issues, he's pretty center left on a lot of issues that I actually agree with. He talks about local journalism funding. I actually agree with. I think we should figure out how to do public funding for local journalism, but we need to make sure we can create a separation from what the government can and cannot control. There's a huge, so here's the thing. The reason I bring this up, it's a very important issue to me. And there is a problem in local outlets being funded by the government and their concern over losing funding. I have seen the BBC lie. They lied about me. I was at an event, I was invited to speak at an event by the BBC, which receives funding through, the license fee. and they need to feign impartiality. So they lied about me because they didn't want to seem biased. They claimed there was an independent journalism not working for Vice at the time. And that's a lie. That's wrong. There is a problem in that companies will be biased in favor of their funding. But right now we have a corporate model and an activist model. So I think you can still balance it out by providing more funding. Now, it does get concerning when he talks about his news and information ombudsman. I don't like the idea of a government actor trying to police what is or isn't true. And he recognizes it's a complicated issue. So I don't really know, how to say that I don't necessarily agree with him, but I like that he's focused on the issue. There's a lot of issues I don't agree with him on. I don't want to go through everything, but let's just pop over to nuclear energy and see if I haven't read this, if I actually agree with him. He says, nuclear power plants generate a majority of our carbon-free energy, but they only generate less than 20% of our overall energy despite being cleaner than fossil fuels. He wants to increase the percent of America's energy needs and, he says, goals. Increase the percent of America's energy needs, are met by nuclear power. I think, so, okay, so I read this right away and I'm like, I agree, nuclear power is good. The reason why I started looking into him, and I read through a lot of these, is that a lot of people actually told me like, dude, you should really check him out. The first thing I noticed, long conversation on Joe Rogan and a huge list of things that he's willing to talk about. And this is huge. It really is. So while I think there's a lot of issues that I don't agree with him on, ultimately, I like that he's focused on, capitalism. He does bring up the universal basic income, which I think he'll experience hurdles on. I don't necessarily agree with. He brought up a really interesting point about universal health care that made me kind of move a little bit more to the left. As many of you probably know, a year ago, I was actually for universal healthcare. I actually made a video about it when I was talking about Ocasio-Cortez. I moved back to the more to the center on the issue because I felt that an organization like, a private organization and the government are just organizations that provide healthcare. What can the government do that a private organization can't? But I've been hearing a lot of people out and they said universal healthcare doesn't mean the end of private healthcare. He also pointed out that in his view, universal healthcare will remove that obligation from businesses and encourage more people to start businesses. And as I am expanding my business, I kind of thought he makes a really good point. I have to consider healthcare as I'm filing the paperwork for my company. And so ultimately, I'll say this. Most of my values line center left, very centrist. And while I don't agree with everything he's saying, I respect him coming on, Joe Rogan for 2 hours, Tulsi as well. And I think he's addressing issues that I've thought about for a long time. The looming automation, where we go from there. I think he's wrong on a lot of issues. I really do. I don't know what's right. All I can say is I don't have all the answers. I don't think I'm the smartest person in the world. I think I disagree with him on a lot of issues. I think he's brought up some really interesting points I hadn't considered, and he seems sincere. Tulsi Gabbard opposes war. I decided to make donations to them. I'll leave it there. I feel free to comment and let me know what you think. I don't want to be it's complicated. It really is. I know a lot of people are going to comment with some thought-provoking things, probably make me reconsider the choices I've made. But I want to just, put it this way. These are people that I feel are genuine, and I want them on the debate stage. They spoke on Joe Rogan. They were willing to be transparent. I want them on the national debate stage talking about their ideas. I really don't think they can win, but I don't know. Comment below and let me know what you think. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why you agree. Let's open up the conversation. And more importantly, I just wanted to make sure it was transparent, plain and simple. You should know when people you follow for political discourse and news coverage are making donations to political parties. You know that I'm not a supporter of most Republican policies. I'm, pro-choice. I think a minimum wage is like, as I mentioned, previously, we need to figure out how to deal with wealth inequality. I liked Bernie before. I don't really trust him as much as I do now. I oppose war, and I want to hear these things presented. So I'm willing to give these people a chance to make it on the debate stage, and so that's why I made a donation to them. Whether or not they win, I don't know, but let's have the conversation. I've seen a lot of people give me feedback on Facebook saying things that, of the Democrats, these were the two they actually thought were good. And here's the best part. Somebody said, Tim, those are the alt-right Democrats. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. I don't know. I really don't. Whether or not you agree with my choice, you might think I'm an idiot. You might think I'm crazy. You probably just don't agree. But so long as you know I did this and it's transparent that I did, keep that in mind. That's all I can really say. So let's have a conversation. Let's do it. Comment below. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the main channel at 10 a.m.